Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank is one of my favorite guys when talking about business. Number one, he's short and to the point and very funny. Number two, he breaks things down so we all can understand. This is from an interview where he talks about tariffs. We're going to watch it together. Let's go.
I want to start on these tariffs. The market is on track right now for its worst weekly performance since March of 2020. How do you continue to be an advocate for these tariffs, given the sell-off we're seeing, given that I have had every source on our show this morning say that these tariffs will be causing a recession in the United States?
They don't know that yet. They don't know how long the tariff's going to be on. We've never done this before. We've never taken on the entire globe. Usually it's done in trade agreements with specific countries, such as NAFTA, which was Canada and Mexico, or European Union situation. This is unique, over 60 countries. Now, there's two aspects to these tariffs. Number one is reciprocality against tariffs from one country to another based on products and services that are specific. So if you're charging a 20% tariff in India, it's going to be reciprocated in the United States. And those go away pretty quickly. That actually leads to fair trade. The more complex aspect of the idea of trade imbalances. And so when you put on tariffs to try and fix trade imbalance, it's difficult because the largest economy on earth is the United States. So really you're starting a behemoth negotiation, and it's happening in every country. You highlighted Canada, but you might as well talk about Britain or even Switzerland, where I am right now, where they have over 30% tariffs imposed 48 hours ago. And so you can assume that behind the scenes are two spheres of negotiations. One is, let's try and reduce the imbalance of trade by buying more stuff from the United States. That's one signal. And the other, which is very easy to fix, is simply remove all tariffs. If you're going to have reciprocal tariffs at 20%, 30%, 40%, just get rid of them, bring them down to zero.
But Kevin, as of this morning, with a 34% retaliatory tariff from China to the United States, we are not getting closer to free trade. We are just getting further into a trade war.
Well, hold on. Now, I like her challenge. I like Kevin O'Leary's answer, but it's only been like 5 minutes into China's reverse trade war of putting a 34% tariff on all of our goods going over there. Just so you guys know what's happening, a trade war is developing. And I think the big picture that Trump is after is he is taking on the whole globe, but I believe he's specifically trying to create a trade war with China that he believes we're finally going to win, which undoes what Bush did in the early 90s. George Herbert Walker Bush, the first president, in opening up this trade with China, when they thought that we could turn China into a Western civilization by opening up trade and they'll become a democracy. It didn't work, and Trump is going to reverse all that. That's my theory.
No, China's a whole different story. This isn't about trade war with China. This is about leveling the playing field on a wide range of issues, including IP law, access to business, access to courts, being compliant with U.S. regulations on securities. There is a laundry list of grievances with China that have been around since they joined the WTO, and none of the administrations previously have ever dealt with China.
So why are tariffs the right way?
Dealt with for the first time. So this has nothing to do with just tariffs. I mean, right now I can't litigate.
But that's the tool that the administration is using. Why are tariffs the correct tool if, to your point, these have nothing to do with tariffs?
What tool do you suggest they do when nothing else has worked?
I'm not the president. It's not my job.
That's a terrible answer. Who does she think she is? I'm not the president. It's not my job to come up with a tool besides tariff. What would she rather have? Global thermonuclear war? How about a tariff? Isn't that better? By the way, these are all proxy wars. China is an enemy. And yes, we're conducting a proxy war. And no, it's not about the tariff. It's about all of these things that Kevin O'Leary just brought out, this whole list. Intellectual property law. China steals our stuff, apps, toy designs, and just Timu. They just make knockoffs of it and then import it back into America and sell it to you for cheaper on Amazon. And I'm talking about, I've bought like heating filters for my guppy tank. A filter that a heater that heats the water. I can buy it from China for $10. The same item is American for $60. They just knock it off, They put it out, but they manufacture it over there for slave wages and they sell it on Amazon for cheaper, and then we buy that good. It undercuts our entire middle class people. And this lady being this flip, she does so slow. She does not get it. Kevin is so smart, and he's not a Trump advocate. Remember, Kevin O'Leary was not a go Trump MAGA guy at all. He said, I don't care about anything but money and business. I don't care. He would not be here pumping Trump if he thought that Trump was doing something wrong. That's why I respect Kevin O'Leary so much.
Well, exactly. So let him do his work. China's different than all the other countries.
But it's not
China
working,
has to be dealt
right?
with. Look, I'm having lots of problems with China, as are millions of other companies in the United States that try to do business there. They do not play by the rules. They're going to have to start doing it pretty soon. That's a different conversation. You want to talk about the markets correcting? Yes, they are. By the way, markets correct every 18 months up to 20%. You're watching it happen right now. It's not pleasant. You can't blame just the tariffs for this. These have been very expensive markets now for almost 18 months. Now they're having a correction. I think what matters is this a recession signal, yes or no? And how long will these tariffs be on? I would say 50% of these tariffs across these 60 countries will be negotiated pretty quickly, including the Canadian situation you made details on. Canada's different because they're in the middle of an election. Carney's not an elected official. He has no mandate from the Canadian people. He's just an interim prime minister when they threw out Justin Trudeau a few weeks ago. He's got to get elected first, so he's going to say anything he possibly can to try and distract Canadian voters from the fact that his party bankrupt the country. 25% of Canadians live in poverty. They have had no GDP growth for 10 years. There's no investment capital in Canada anymore, and the dollar's lost 41% of its value. Canadians can't go to the United States because they can't afford it under Carney's leadership in his party. So those are different issues too. There's a lot of things going on at the same time.
A lot of things that economists tell me are not fixable via tariffs, but I am curious from your...
See, she just ignored every P item that he just now said. This lady, Kevin, I always get bugged because Kevin, who claims to be a shark, right, claims to be a straight shooter, and he never realizes the play in the room is that he's being played, that Democrats are not listening. They're only there to hate Trump. And he just now gave her a list of facts, and she just ignored them all like water off a duck's back, man. She has no interest in the information he just gave about China. She didn't hear one thing. All she knows is, and she's dumb, all she knows is Trump wants tariffs. Tariffs don't work. Tariffs don't work. Trump wants tariffs. Trump must fail. That's all she knows. That's this whole conversation. Kevin's going to keep giving her facts and try to educate her thick little skull, and she has no interest.
Your perspective, then, why do you think that we are moving towards a negotiation where these tariffs are not going to be as bad as they seem right now, at least for financial markets? What is it that gives you confidence that there is going to be a negotiation reached?
Because there's a good reason to do it. I mean, you got to distinguish the noise versus the signal. I've said this countless times about Trump. Let's take the Canadian situation, which we've been talking about. If you combine those economies, I'm not saying buying the country, but if you combine the economies, which seems impossible to do given the rhetoric and what's going on right now, but the truth is, the signal is it would be much stronger against China if there were no tariffs between Canada and the United States, and they had a common currency, and they protected the northern border, not the 49th parallel. Now, the Canadians know that's worth it because 75% of their output has been sold to the United States for over 120 years. 17 states call Canada the #1 trading partner. 28 states, in addition to those 17, #2 trading partner is Canada. So it'd be economic suicide not to work this out. The obvious answer is to remove all tariffs, and that will happen, my guess is, right after the election when the Canadians make their choice about who they want to lead them. That person will fly to Washington immediately and start negotiations, which I would call NAFTA 3. But right now, that's not happening because Carney's trying to use this whole Trump issue as fulcrum to try and distract Canadians away from the facts that he wiped out the country. Maybe he'll get elected, maybe he won't. Nobody knows right now. But nothing's going to happen on the Canadian situation until the election's over in just over 5 weeks.
So let's talk about the Canadian citizen reaction, because we've already seen evidence of Canadian citizens boycotting American products. We've heard from CEOs that they are concerned about that, even airline CEOs and the governor of New York being concerned about Canadians not wanting to travel to the United States. Are you getting that pushback from your fellow citizens in Canada?
No. You can understand if you've got the froth and rhetoric around an election cycle why you would get some of that. And some Canadians are unhappy, there's no question about it, but Canadians are not stupid. They understand the economic advantage of working and selling to the United States and having no tariff whatsoever. The behemoth economy is a golden jewel of an idea, and everybody gets that joke. Americans do not hate Canadians. Canadians do not hate Americans. Politicians have lots of rhetoric when they're trying to get elected. That's what they're doing here. All of this will pass too. What drives everybody long term are economic interests. And that's what really you should focus on here. This will pass. Things will calm down. More rational minds will sit at a table across from each other in about 6 weeks in Washington and in Ottawa.
More rational than the president?
So, see, there she goes again. She just has something to say about Trump. He's irrational. More irrational than President Trump. What about more irrational than all of the tariffs? Canada, before Trump came along, having a 200% tariff on when we would try and export our maple syrup into Canada because it competes with Canada's maple syrup, for which we buy 75% of. I really adore Kevin O'Leary here, who's just trying to talk business. And so he's saying, like, America has to hold out for at least 5 more weeks. That's just with Canada. 5 weeks with Canada. Can we do it? Can we fight the Democrat message that this lady is going, I see a great opportunity as a Democrat. This is the first opportunity we've had to go against Trump with this tariff thing. Ooh, it hit the stock market. Don't you all regret voting for him yet? Don't you wish you voted for Kamala Harris? And no one's buying it. Only Democrats are buying it. They just see it as a weapon of opportunity. It's only going to last 5 weeks, folks. You got to hold tight.
At the end of the day, the president's not an idiot either. Neither is Ludnick or Burgum or any of those people negotiating these deals right now. You have to look at the economic opportunity. They're not idiots. They're negotiating. This is a giant, nasty negotiation with a little bit of politics and a little dash-will-do-y of politics because of the crazy timing of the Canadian election. Trump has a 4-year mandate. At least 2 of them are in a majority situation. If he's going to do all this volatile stuff, which he's doing right now, he's got to do it now, because he may not have a majority mandate after the midterms. So that's why you're getting such an accelerated pace of policy. These tariffs, as I said earlier, 50% of them can be easily melted away to a reciprocal of 0 tariffs. And then this trade deficit is a trickier situation country by country. The only reason there's a deficit in Canada is the fact that so much oil is imported from Alberta into the U.S. economy. If you took away oil, Canadians buy more goods and services from the United States than vice versa. There is no trade deficit ex oil. So that is obvious too. The numbers are the numbers. It will get resolved. And I think calmer minds will prevail after the election is over in Canada.
And check this one out, guys. I'm recording this live from my screen from Donald J. Trump. Yesterday, China issued retaliatory tariffs of 34% on top of their already setting tariffs, non-monetary tariffs, illegal subsidization of companies, and massive long-term currency manipulation, despite my warning that any country that retaliates against the U.S. by issuing additional tariffs above and beyond their already existing long-term tariff abuse of our nation will be immediately met with new and substantially higher tariffs over and above those initially set. Therefore, if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, April 8th, 2025, the United States will impose an additional tariffs on China of 50%. Go Trump. Effective April 9th. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with us will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries, which have also requested meetings, will begin taking place immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Go Trump.
It says to the Chinese, enough already. It says to the Chinese that their unfair trade policies have got to end. It says to the Chinese, this is a shot across your bow. Reform, because if you don't, there are going to be dramatic consequences throughout the world, in our country, and in your country as well. The bottom line is very simple, Mr. President. The Chinese have enjoyed a huge trade surplus with the United States, as this chart shows. Every year, it gets larger and larger and larger. Admittedly, some of that trade surplus is due to the rules of free trade. But much of that trade surplus is because the Chinese don't play fair. They don't let our goods into their country. I can tell you company after company in New York who cannot sell goods in China or can only sell the goods under certain conditions that make it impossible for them to sell them. The Chinese make no effort to prevent the ripping off of our intellectual property. These are our crown jewels, the thinking, the great creativity, the great entrepreneurialness of the American business community is just taken and they shrug their shoulders. And worst of all, the Chinese, despite the fact that they have tremendous advantages by the rules of free trade, pile on and add unfair rules that violate free trade. And at the top of that list is the fact that the Chinese peg their currency abnormally low so that their exports get a 27% advantage here in the United States. Our imports get a 27% disadvantage when sold in China. Every tenet of free trade, if you believe in it, says they should not peg their currency. And Senator Graham and I have forborne. We were asked by the administration last year, let us negotiate. I agree, negotiating would be better. But nothing happened. The Chinese give lip service and don't change their trade policies a jot. What does this mean for America? It means a huge job loss. We have suffered dramatically in manufacturing jobs and now service jobs and other jobs. It means we have a huge trade deficit. It means the dollar sinks to abysmally low levels, threatening our wealth. And it creates chaos in the whole world trading system. The euro and the yen bear the pressure of the Chinese currency devaluation against the dollar. We are fed up, Mr. President. This is a measure that shouldn't have to be on this floor. The Chinese should play by the rules once and for all. But how can we stand by as millions of American workers lose their jobs, as thousands of American companies can't compete fairly, as our country as a whole has wealth drained from it? The U.S.-China Commission, set up by this body and the other body to try and bring fair trade to China, believes this is the best way to go. The length of both manufacturers, business leaders, and labor leaders who support this legislation is long and large. It is a bipartisan bill. Senator Graham and I have endeavored to pick up equal amounts of support from each side of the aisle. No one seeks political advantage. What we seek, rather, is fairness. Fairness in trade, not in the sense of saying we don't want free trade, but in the sense of playing by the rules. The Chinese do not play by the rules. We have talked and talked and talked as a nation to them. With other nations of the world, we have talked and talked and talked to the Chinese till we're blue in the face. The time for action is now. If not now, when? If not us, who? Millions of American workers, thousands of American businesses look to us to try and set things right.
Kevin, I want to end on TikTok. Both President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance saying a deal to sell the app will be reached before this weekend's deadline. And then on Air Force One, President Trump said tariffs on China could be part of that negotiation. Take a listen.
We have a situation with TikTok where China will probably say, we'll approve a deal, but will you do something on the tariff? The tariffs give us great power to negotiate.
So if tariffs and TikTok are now getting tied by the president, where does that put your bid for TikTok in terms of your negotiation power? Where does your bid stand right now?
Well, there's many bids. There's no question there's a deal for TikTok on the table, and that will get one thing with certainty. Tomorrow before midnight, an extension. My guess is 90 days. It'll be punted down the road because the details of the TikTok deal are very difficult. Let me explain two big issues. China has not said what they want to do yet. The current idea is to get a copy of the code and make an American version of it, and we're not sure that passes muster with the law. If you can download, anybody in America can go get the Supreme Court order. The top of page 5 makes it very clear you can't use the Chinese algorithm. So what we're going to have to do, if that's the plan, is get an indemnification from Congress or change the law to make it legal to use that. And that would require 51 votes in changing it, and maybe they could slip it into the Reconciliation Act. All of these are unknowns. But right now, the penalty would be about $820 billion. That's $5,000 per user account per 24 hours times 172 million. And no capital stack of any of the syndicates formed can take that risk. So we need clarity on what's allowed and what isn't based on the law that was passed by Congress and the Supreme Court order. Remember, it was 9-0. There was no ambiguity in it. And so somebody has to figure that out and either give financiers, both the debt and equity structures, some kind of indemnification against that penalty coming back. Because remember, that law will last long past Trump's administration. So if you have an ambitious attorney general that perhaps is a Democrat, you'll get sued for $800 billion.
Yeah.
Nobody can afford that. So
Yeah, then no one can afford that. That's a fascinating little insight on the TikTok I didn't expect. That's a bonus on this episode, guys. But Kevin O'Leary is still on Team Trump, not because he's a Republican or not because he's pro-MAGA, but because he sees what Trump is doing, and he sees as a businessman the necessity of we got to go in and straighten this stuff out, and tariffs are just one arbitrary rule to fix a whole lot of stuff that's wrong, and it's primarily stuff that's wrong between us and China. I'm Doug, in exile.